The moment my son Brandon handed me that filthy, moth-eaten shawl at my grandson's 7th birthday party, his exact words were, "Put this over your wrinkled face so you don't humiliate us in the photos." His country club friends laughed. His Botox-filled wife giggled. The $3,000 photographer actually smirked. They thought I was just the embarrassing poor mother from Columbus, Georgia. What they didn't know, I was sitting on $4.2 million, and I'd been testing every single one of them for the past 3 months. By the time I was done, my son would be on his knees, his wife would be sobbing, and their entire fake empire would crumble like the cheap facade it was. Want to know how a Southern grandma serves revenge colder than sweet tea in January? Baby, buckle up. If you're here for the kind of revenge that makes karma look lazy, smash that subscribe button right now. Drop a "Yes, Grandma" in the comments if you're ready to watch this table get flipped. Let's get into it. Let me paint you a picture of where this story really begins. My name is Diane Crawford, and I'm 68 years old. I've got wrinkles, gray hair, I don't bother dyeing, and hands that look like they've worked every day of their life. Because they have. I raised my son Brandon completely alone after my husband died in a car accident when Brandon was just 5 years old. 5 years old, y'all. Can you imagine? One day your daddy is teaching you to ride a bike. The next day he's gone forever. I worked double shifts at the textile mill in Columbus, Georgia. Morning shift, then straight to the night shift. I'd sleep 4 hours, wake up, pack Brandon's lunch, get him to school, and do it all over again. Piano lessons? I worked overtime. Private school? I picked up weekend shifts. Summer camp? I sold my wedding ring. Everything I did, every sacrifice I made, was for that boy. And he turned into a successful financial advisor in Atlanta. Big house in Buckhead. That's the fancy part of town for anyone not from Georgia. Beautiful wife named Ashley, who used to be a pharmaceutical sales rep, but retired after they got married. One precious grandson named Mason, who has my late husband's eyes. From the outside, Brandon had made it. The American dream. The kid from nothing who became something. But here's what nobody knew. 3 months before Mason's birthday party, I was cleaning out my late sister Ruby's house in Savannah. Ruby had passed suddenly, heart attack at 65, and she'd left everything to me. We weren't close. Honestly, we'd been distant for decades after some family drama I couldn't even remember the details of anymore. While sorting through boxes in her attic, I found something that changed everything. A cardboard box, water-stained and dusty, shoved behind old Christmas decorations. Inside were letters. Dozens and dozens of letters, all addressed to me, all from 50 years ago, all from James Whitmore. James. God, I hadn't thought about James in forever. He was my first love, my high school sweetheart. We dated senior year, and when I got pregnant at 18, yes, pregnant with Brandon, James disappeared. Ghosted me completely. Never called, never wrote, never showed up. I thought he'd abandoned us. I thought he was just another deadbeat who ran when things got real. So I married Stephen Crawford 6 months later, a good man who loved Brandon like his own and gave him his name. And I moved on with my life. Except James hadn't abandoned us at all. Sitting in Ruby's dusty attic, reading letters that were 50 years old, I discovered the truth. My sister Ruby had been intercepting every piece of mail James sent me. Every single one. Letters begging me to call him. Letters saying he'd gotten a job at the new General Motors plant in Spring Hill, Tennessee. Letters saying he was saving money for a ring. Letters asking why I wouldn't respond. Why I'd cut him out completely. 27 letters. I counted them twice. Ruby had stolen my mail because, as I pieced together from her diary, which I also found, she was jealous. Jealous that I'd found love while she was alone. Jealous that James chose me over her, because apparently she'd had a massive crush on him too. So she destroyed my relationship and let me believe I'd been abandoned. I sat in that attic and cried for 3 hours straight. But here's where it gets absolutely wild. James never married. According to the letters from his attorney, yes, his attorney, James spent his entire life wondering why the woman he loved had vanished on him. He built a good life, worked at GM for 42 years, invested wisely, but he never found anyone else. And when he died 2 years ago at 70, he left everything to me in his will. His house in Spring Hill, his savings, his pension, his investments. $4.2 million. His son, a lawyer in Nashville, had been searching for me for 2 years, working through old addresses and outdated records. The letter from the law firm had finally been sent to Ruby's address because that was the last known contact they could find in the old GM employment files. Ruby had received it, opened it, and apparently had a heart attack reading it before she could tell anyone. Dark? Yes. But karma works in mysterious ways. Within 2 weeks, I'd flown to Nashville, met James's son Michael, signed all the paperwork, and deposited $4.2 million into my bank account. I sat in my tiny house in Columbus, the house I'd paid off through blood, sweat, and 20-hour workdays. And I should have been thrilled. But something was bothering me. Because right around the time James's attorney had started searching for me, Brandon had suddenly gotten very interested in my finances. He started calling more often, started asking questions about my house, started suggesting, oh so gently, that maybe I should think about downsizing because my little place was probably too much for me to handle at my age. Started mentioning assisted living facilities. Nice ones, he said, where I'd have people to take care of me. At first, I thought he was being a concerned son, but something felt off. The timing was too convenient. The pressure was too constant. So I did something that might seem crazy. I decided to test him. I started playing poor. I wore my oldest clothes to family dinners. I complained about bills. I acted forgetful and weak. I played the helpless old lady that I suspected he wanted me to be. And I watched. Oh, honey, did I watch. Within a month, Brandon was pushing harder about selling the house. Said he'd help me find a buyer. Said he'd take care of everything, so I wouldn't have to worry. Red flags everywhere. So I hired a private investigator, a good one recommended by Michael, James's son, who'd become something of a friend through all this. And what that investigator found made my blood run cold. Brandon had hired someone to get copies of my bank statements, highly illegal. Brandon's company, BH Enterprises, was in massive debt. Brandon and Ashley were living completely beyond their means. The Buckhead house was mortgaged to the hilt, both cars were leased, and Ashley had maxed out 7 credit cards on shopping sprees and country club memberships. They were drowning, absolutely drowning. And Brandon had found out about my inheritance somehow, maybe through his illegal banking connections, maybe through courthouse gossip about probate records. I don't know. But he knew, and he was planning to steal it. The investigator showed me documents that proved Brandon was planning to buy my house through his company for pennies on the dollar, telling me it was worthless when actually it was sitting on 5 acres that developers wanted to pay $800,000 for. He was going to pocket the difference and use my money to save his fake lifestyle. My son was going to rob me blind and stick me in a nursing home. So when that birthday party invitation came in the mail, thick, expensive cardstock with gold lettering, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to show up, play my role one last time, and then I was going to burn his entire world down. I bought a Walmart dress. I did my makeup badly on purpose. I drove my beat-up 2003 Honda Civic to his pristine Buckhead mansion. and I waited for him to reveal exactly who he'd become. The party was everything you'd expect from people desperately trying to prove they have money, excessive, showy, and hollow as a drum. There were bounce houses, plural, a petting zoo, a magician, a balloon artist, face painters, the $3,000 photographer Ashley kept bragging about, catered food from some trendy Atlanta restaurant I'd never heard of, and decorations that probably cost more than my monthly pension. For a 7-year-old's birthday party, Mason, bless his heart, would have been happy with a cake and some streamers. But this wasn't about Mason. This was about Brandon and Ashley proving to their country club friends that they belonged. I arrived right on time, walking through that ornate iron gate into the backyard that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Everything was white and gold. White tablecloths, gold balloons, white roses in gold vases. And there I was, in my faded floral Walmart dress and sensible shoes, looking like I'd stumbled in from a church potluck. Perfect. Brandon saw me immediately, and I watched his face do this complicated thing where he was simultaneously embarrassed and annoyed. He was wearing a suit to his son's birthday party, Armani, probably, with shoes so shiny I could see my reflection. "Mom," he said, walking over quickly like he could contain the damage. "You made it." "Of course I made it, honey. Wouldn't miss my grandson's birthday for anything." Ashley appeared beside him in a white cocktail dress that probably cost more than my car. Her smile was plastic surgery tight. "Diane, so good to see you. Here, let me introduce you to everyone." She said it like she was presenting a zoo animal. "Look, everyone, Brandon's poor mother is here. Isn't that charitable of us?" I met the Johnstons, Rick and Melissa, both real estate agents with capped teeth. The Carmichaels, Jeff and Brittany, who owned some kind of tech startup. The Hendersons, Tom and Sarah, who kept mentioning their lake house. Every single one of them looked at me like I was a stain on the white linen. "So, you're Brandon's mother," Melissa Johnston said, her voice dripping with that fake Southern sweetness that's really just cruelty in a sundress. "Brandon's told us so much about you." "Has he now?" I smiled. "He mentioned you still live in Columbus. How quaint." Translation: how poor. "It's home," I said simply. "Well, bless your heart." And there it is, y'all. For anyone not from the South, bless your heart is the polite way of saying, I pity you. I played along beautifully, asked questions about their lives, complimented Ashley's plastic surgery, her glow, admired the excessive party decorations. I was the sweet, simple old lady who didn't understand their fancy world. And they ate it up. But then came the cake moment. Mason was bouncing around in his Spider-Man outfit, excited about the massive 3-tiered cake shaped like a superhero building. All the kids gathered around. The adults pulled out their phones for photos. And that's when Brandon made his move. He walked up to me with something in his hands. At first, I couldn't tell what it was in the bright sunlight. Then he got closer, and I saw it clearly. A worn-out shawl. Old, stained with actual moth holes in it. "Mom," he said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "I brought this for you." He handed it to me with this look on his face, half disgust, half cruel amusement. I took it, confused. "What's this, honey?" "It's a shawl." He glanced at Ashley, who was covering her mouth to hide her smile. "For the photos. We just thought, well, the photographer's expensive, and we want nice family pictures, and—" He trailed off, but his meaning was crystal clear. The Carmichaels had stopped talking. The Hendersons were watching. Even the photographer had lowered his camera. "Brandon," I said slowly, "I don't understand." He sighed like I was being difficult, like I was the problem. "Mom, put the shawl over your face so you don't humiliate us in the photos. You're—" You know. He gestured vaguely at me. Wrinkled. Old. These pictures are going on our Christmas cards. The backyard went silent. Someone gasped. Might have been one of the caterers. Ashley's friends were filming on their phones now. This was entertainment for them. The rich people watching Brandon humiliate his poor, elderly mother at a children's birthday party. Little Mason tugged on my dress. "Grandma, you look pretty. You don't need that ugly blanket." My sweet grandson. The only decent person in this whole circus besides the hired help. I stood there, holding that moth-eaten shawl, and I felt 50 pairs of eyes on me. This was it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Brandon had finally revealed exactly who he was. And now, it was my turn. I folded the shawl carefully and looked up at my son with the sweetest smile I could manage. "Actually, Brandon, before we cut that beautiful cake, I have something I need to say." His smile faltered. "Mom, not now." "Oh yes, now." I raised my voice so everyone could hear. "See, I've been doing a lot of thinking about my future lately, about my little house, about my finances." Brandon's face went from annoyed to alarmed in about 2 seconds. "Everyone gather around," I called out. "This will only take a minute, and then we can celebrate Mason properly." The guests moved closer, sensing drama the way sharks sense blood in water. Ashley grabbed Brandon's arm. "What is she doing?" she whispered, not quietly enough. "I have no idea," Brandon muttered, his jaw tight. "Oh, baby, you're about to find out. Y'all, if you're loving this grandmother's energy, slam that like button. Comment, 'Don't mess with Grandma,' if you know where this is going. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. This revenge is about to go nuclear." I reached into my purse. The same cheap purse I'd carried to every family dinner, every holiday, every event where I played the role of Brandon's embarrassing poor mother. But this time, I pulled out a folder. A thick, official-looking folder. "Brandon, you've been after me for months to sell my house," I said, my voice steady and clear. "You said you were worried about me, said it was too big for me to handle, said you'd help me find a nice assisted living facility." The color was draining from his face. "Mom, we can discuss this later." "We're discussing it now." I opened the folder. "See, I found something interesting when I was organizing my files." I pulled out the first document and held it up for everyone to see. "This is a purchase offer for my property in Columbus. 5 acres, zoned for commercial development. The offer price is $800,000. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Brandon told me my house was worth maybe $120,000. Maybe. He said I'd be lucky to get that much. Said the market was bad. Said I should take whatever I could get." I looked directly at my son. His hands were starting to shake. "Funny thing is, Brandon, you've been lying to me. I was trying to protect you from—" "Protect me!" My voice cracked like thunder. "From what? From the truth? From fair market value?" I pulled out the second document. "This," I said, holding it up, "is a real estate purchase agreement. The buyer is listed as BH Enterprises." I paused. "That's your company, Brandon." Ashley's face went white. "You were planning to buy my house, your mother's house, for pennies on the dollar, then immediately flip it to developers for $800,000, a $680,000 profit, from your own mother." The Carmichaels were backing away slowly. The Johnstons had their phones out, recording everything. "That's not— You're twisting this," Brandon stammered. "Am I?" I pulled out more papers. "Because I hired a private investigator, sweetheart. A really good one. And what he found was absolutely fascinating." Brandon actually swayed on his feet. "BH Enterprises is in debt. Massive debt. This beautiful house?" I gestured around. mortgage to the maximum. Those fancy cars in the driveway, leased. Ashley's designer wardrobe, 7 maxed out credit cards. Ashley burst into tears. Real tears. Not the fake kind she used to manipulate Brandon. You're living completely beyond your means, I continued. You've been faking wealth for so long that you forgot what real money looks like. And when you ran out of options, you decided to steal from me. Steal is a strong word, Brandon tried. You hired someone to get copies of my bank statements illegally. You've been tracking my finances without my permission. You've been planning this heist for months. The photographer had stopped taking pictures of Mason and was filming this instead. This was better than any reality TV show. The house sale wasn't enough, though, was it? I smiled. You were also planning to have me declared incompetent so you could take control of my other assets. I found the consultation request with the elder law attorney. Very thorough, Brandon. You really covered your bases. Brandon fell to his knees, actual tears rolling down his face. Mom, please, please, you don't understand. We're desperate. The bank is threatening foreclosure. We're going to lose everything. I made bad investments, and Ashley's shopping, and the country club fees, and... So you thought you'd make me lose everything instead. I was going to take care of you. I was going to put you somewhere nice. You mean warehouse me in the cheapest facility you could find while you stole my money. The party guests were dead silent. Even the kids had stopped playing. Mason ran to me and hugged my legs. Grandma, why is Daddy crying? Because he did something very bad, baby, and now he has to face it. I pulled out the next document in my stack, and this was the one I'd been saving. Here's the really interesting part, I said, my voice dropping to something dangerous. About 3 months ago, I came into some money. Quite a lot of money, actually. Brandon's head snapped up. What? Do you remember James Whitmore, my boyfriend before your daddy? That guy who abandoned us. What does he have to... He didn't abandon us. My sister Ruby intercepted all his letters. I found them when she died. James never knew I was pregnant. He spent 50 years thinking I'd ghosted him. Brandon's mouth fell open. James left me everything when he died. His house, his savings, his pension, everything. How much? Ashley whispered. I smiled. $4.2 million. You could have heard a pin drop in that Buckhead backyard. I found out 3 months ago, I continued, right around the time you started pushing real hard to get me to sell the house. And I wondered, did you know somehow? Did you hear through the grapevine? Is that why you suddenly cared about my finances? Brandon's face was the color of ashes. So I tested you. I played poor. I played weak. I played confused. I wanted to see what kind of man my son had become. I held up the final document. And you know what my investigator found. You did know about the inheritance. You hired someone to access sealed probate records, which is, by the way, a felony. Ashley actually screamed, a real horror movie scream. You weren't just trying to steal my house. You were trying to steal everything. Brandon collapsed completely, face in his hands, sobbing like a child. The party guests were a mix of horrified and entertained. The Carmichaels had actually left, just walked out the back gate without saying goodbye. The Johnstons were still filming. This was going to be all over Atlanta society by dinner time. Ashley was hyperventilating, her perfect makeup running in black streaks down her face. And that's when she said it. Brandon, you promised me she had money. You said we'd be fine. You said after we got the house we could fix everything. I froze. You knew. Ashley, you were in on this? She looked at me with mascara-stained desperation. We didn't have a choice. The credit card companies were threatening lawsuits. The bank sent foreclosure notices. We have children to think about. You have my grandson to think about, I corrected. And instead of coming to me for help like decent people, you plotted to rob me. We thought you didn't have anything, Ashley shrieked. We thought we were just helping you downsize. Brandon said you'd be better off in a facility anyway. Better off without my home? Without my independence? Without my dignity? You're old, Ashley screamed, and the mask finally came off completely. You're old, and you dress like a Walmart clearance rack, and you embarrass us every time we bring you around our friends. We were doing you a favor. The remaining guests gasped. Ashley! Brandon grabbed her arm. Stop talking. But she was too far gone, too panicked, too desperate. We were going to take care of you. We were going to visit you. But we needed the money. Diane, we needed it. And you're just sitting on millions while we're drowning. You're drowning because you bought a house you couldn't afford, cars you didn't need, and a lifestyle that was always fake. I shot back. Then Ashley said something that made the entire world stop. Well, it's too late now anyway. I'm pregnant, with twins. What are we supposed to do now? Time froze. You're... what? I whispered. Ashley's hands flew to her mouth, but the damage was done. Brandon's face went from devastated to absolutely horrified. You're pregnant? I repeated. How far along? 4 months, Ashley whispered through her fingers. I looked at her closer. The expensive dress was hiding it well, but now that I knew, I could see it. The slight bump. The fuller face. So you're having twins, you're facing foreclosure, and your plan was to steal from me? Neither of them answered. Mason, who'd been standing there confused this whole time, suddenly said, Mommy, I'm going to be a big brother. And just like that, the complexity of the situation hit me like a freight train. My son was a liar and a thief. My daughter-in-law was complicit. But there were children involved, Mason, who was innocent, and 2 babies on the way, who didn't ask for any of this. The rage inside me hit a wall called reality. I looked at Brandon, still on his knees, crying. I looked at Ashley, mascara everywhere, hand protectively on her belly. I looked at Mason, confused and scared. I looked at the remaining party guests, phones out, witnessing everything. And I had to make a choice. Destroy them completely, or give them a chance to rebuild. Stand up, I said quietly. Brandon stood, wiping his face, hands still trembling. Both of you, look at me. They did. 2 desperate people who'd made catastrophic choices. You want to know what I'm going to do with my inheritance? The entire backyard held its breath. I pulled out a check I'd written that morning, knowing this moment would come. This is a check for $50,000. Brandon's eyes went wide. Mom! Shut up and listen. This will cover 3 months of your mortgage payments. That's all you're getting from me right now. 3 months won't, Ashley started. I said, shut up. My voice could have cut glass. You have 3 months to sell this ridiculous house that you can't afford. You'll move into something modest, something realistic, something you can actually pay for. But the babies, Ashley sobbed. The babies will be fine in a 3-bedroom house in a normal neighborhood. They don't need Buckhead. They need parents who aren't criminals. I turned to Brandon. You'll get a real job, not this pretend entrepreneur nonsense. A real job with a real salary. You'll get a financial planner. You'll start therapy, both of you, to figure out why you thought any of this was acceptable. What if we can't sell the house in 3 months? Brandon asked. Then it forecloses, and that's on you. Ashley started crying harder. But here's the deal, I continued. Over the next year, you're going to prove to me that you can be decent human beings, that you can budget, that you can live within your means, that you can be good parents. And then, Brandon whispered, then we'll talk. about college funds for the kids, about a reasonable down payment on a modest house, about having a real relationship where I'm not just an ATM or a victim. I picked up the moth-eaten shawl he'd given me. I'm keeping this. I'm going to frame it and hang it in my living room as a reminder of this day. The day my son hit rock bottom, and the day he either started climbing back up or stayed in the pit. The party was over. The guests had scattered like roaches when you turn on the lights. The photographer had stopped filming. Even the catering staff was packing up early. But I wasn't done. "Mason, baby, come here." I called to my grandson. He ran over, birthday hat crooked on his head, confusion written all over his sweet face. "Grandma, I don't understand what's happening." "I know, sweetheart. Adults sometimes make really complicated messes. But I want you to listen to me carefully, okay?" He nodded. "Your daddy made some big mistakes, really big mistakes. He did something that hurt me and could have hurt our whole family." "Is Daddy bad?" I looked at Brandon, who was watching us with devastating hope in his eyes. "No, baby, Daddy's not bad, but he made bad choices. There's a difference. Bad people can't change. But people who make bad choices, they can fix it if they work hard enough." "Are you mad at Daddy?" "Yes, very mad. But I still love him. That's the confusing part about family. You can love someone and be furious with them at the same time." Mason hugged me. "I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, baby. More than anything." I handed him a small wrapped present I'd brought. "This is for you. Open it later, okay?" He nodded and ran back to the pile of presents. Resilient the way only 7-year-olds can be. I turned back to Brandon and Ashley. "Here's what's going to happen next," I said. "In 1 week, I want a written plan from both of you. A real budget. A timeline for selling this house. A list of more affordable options. Proof that you've scheduled therapy appointments." Brandon nodded frantically. "Yes. Yes, we'll do it. I swear, Mom. If you miss one deadline, one payment, one therapy session, this deal is off. And when I die, everything goes into trusts for the grandchildren that you can't touch until they're 30 years old." "We understand," Ashley whispered. "Do you?" I stepped closer to them. "Because I need to know you really understand what you did. You weren't just stealing money. You were stealing my dignity, my independence, my home. You were going to warehouse me like garbage so you could live in a house you couldn't afford." Brandon's voice broke. "I know. God, Mom, I know. I don't even recognize myself anymore. I don't know how I became this person." "Well, you have 3 months to figure it out. 3 months to remember who you were before Atlanta Society and Country Club memberships poisoned you." I looked around at the remains of the party, the elaborate decorations, the excessive everything. All of this, I gestured around, is fake. The house is fake. The lifestyle is fake. Your friendships are fake. The only real things you have are Mason and those babies on the way. Don't forget that. I picked up my cheap purse and the moth-eaten shawl. "I'm leaving now. I'll expect that written plan by next Sunday. Email it to me." "Mom, wait!" Brandon called out. Are we going to be okay?" I stopped at the gate and looked back at him, my son, the boy I'd raised alone, the man who'd lost his way. "That depends entirely on you." They sold the Buckhead house. Brandon had to take a $70,000 loss because he was desperate. But he sold it. They moved into a 4-bedroom ranch house in Marietta. Modest. Normal. With a mortgage they could actually afford. Brandon got a real job as a financial advisor at an established firm. Ironic, given that he couldn't manage his own money. but he was good at it when he wasn't trying to impress people. Ashley started working part-time at a boutique. The therapy was helping. Slowly. The twins, two beautiful baby girls, were born healthy at 8 months. Ruby and Pearl, named after my sister and my mother. Ashley said she wanted to honor family. I'd donated $1 million to the textile mill workers' pension fund. The women who'd worked alongside me for decades, who'd struggled just like I had, they deserved it. I'd set up trust funds for Mason and the twins that their parents couldn't touch. College, medical expenses, their first home down payments, all covered. I'd bought myself a brand new Cadillac, red, because I could. And I'd taken a cruise to Alaska and seen glaciers that took my breath away. Every Sunday, Brandon, Ashley, Mason, and the twins come to my house in Columbus for dinner. We eat at my old kitchen table that I'd refinanced the house to buy 30 years ago. We use the plates from the thrift store. We drink sweet tea in mismatched glasses. And it's real. It's actually real. Brandon can't look me in the eye sometimes. The shame runs too deep. But he's trying. He shows up. He helps with dishes. He asks about my week. Ashley brings flowers. She doesn't wear designer clothes anymore. Can't afford them. And honestly, she looks better without all the plastic surgery polish. Mason is thriving. His school is good, his friends are kind, and he's not being raised by nannies anymore. The twins are perfect. Ruby has my late husband's eyes. Pearl has a smile that reminds me so much of James in the old photos Michael sent me. Funny how life works that way, even when there's no blood connection. As for me, I framed that moth-eaten shawl, just like I said I would. It hangs in my living room with a little brass plaque beneath it that reads, "The gift that reminded me that family means giving second chances, but on my terms." Sometimes people from Brandon's old life ask him what happened, why they left Buckhead, why they downsized, why they're not at the country club anymore. He tells them the truth. My mother taught me what really matters. Last Sunday, after everyone left, Brandon stayed behind to help me clean up. We stood at the sink washing dishes, something he probably hadn't done in years, and he said quietly, "Mom, I need to tell you something." "What's that, honey?" "I'm grateful. I know it sounds insane. I'm living in a house a tenth of the size, driving a used car, working for someone else, but I'm grateful. Because I forgot who I was. And you reminded me." I handed him a dish to dry. "You reminded yourself. I just gave you the space to do it." "That shawl." His voice cracked. "God, Mom, I can't believe I did that." "Well, it makes a nice decoration." He laughed. Actually laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd heard from him in years. "You could have destroyed me," he said. "You could have pressed charges, taken Mason, told everyone, ruined my career. You could have cut me off completely." I thought about it. Why didn't you? I looked at my son, really looked at him, at the gray in his hair that wasn't there 7 months ago, at the lines around his eyes from stress, at the man who was learning to be better. Because revenge isn't always about destruction, Brandon. Sometimes it's about transformation. Sometimes the best revenge is watching someone become the person they were always supposed to be. He hugged me then. A real hug, not the awkward, obligatory kind from the country club days. "I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry for everything." "I love you too, baby." "Now finish those dishes. The twins will be hungry in an hour, and your wife needs you home." He dried the last plate, kissed my cheek, and headed out to his sensible used Toyota. I watched him drive away from my front window, then looked at that framed shawl on my wall. Best $50,000 investment I ever made. Because here's what those country club vultures will never understand. Real revenge isn't about destroying people. It's about holding them accountable while giving them a rope to climb back up. It's about justice that actually means something. It's about teaching people that actions have consequences. But consequences can also be lessons. Brandon had his moment of reckoning. He hit rock bottom in front of everyone he'd been trying to impress. His fake life shattered like cheap glass. But he got back up. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of revenge that lasts. Not because I destroyed him, but because I saved him from destroying himself. And every Sunday, when he sits at my kitchen table with his real life, his real family, his real values restored, he remembers that birthday party. He remembers the shawl. He remembers hitting his knees in front of everyone. And he remembers that his mother loved him enough to let him fall, so he could learn to stand. That's the kind of revenge that changes generations. That's the kind of justice that actually heals. And baby, that's the kind of story that makes karma look lazy. If this grandmother's revenge made your day, smash that subscribe button for more stories where justice is served ice cold. Drop "never mess with grandma" in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to know that real revenge is about teaching lessons, not just causing pain. And remember, family is complicated, but it's always worth fighting for. On your terms. Until next time, y'all, remember that wisdom and wrinkles beat Botox and betrayal every single time.